We are recording. So, for my first question, do I have your permission to record this interview?
Yes.
Awesome. Could you please start by telling me your full name, what you like to be called, your occupation at the time, and then where you are from?
Okay, so my name's Matthew Watkins. I prefer to be called Matt, which most what everybody calls me, so that's all good. Um, I at the at this time I am a retired municipal administrator from New Jersey, and since retiring about 5 years ago, I started a company called NJ Community Solutions. That's a consulting company helping helping municipal and county governments in their management and organization and special projects. In addition to that, I'm a consultant to the League of New Jersey Municipal League sorry about that, New Jersey League of Municipalities. And together I host a series of workshops teaching municipal officials how to run local government in New Jersey, being that we're a uniquely structured uh, state as it relates to municipal and county governments. And so I'm excited to do that and share my knowledge with local officials that are now still doing the job. So with that, I retired after being 40 years in local government and state government, and 12 of those years were spent in South Brunswick. Um, in South Brunswick, I came in March of 1999, I believe it was, or May, and I was excited to be appointed there. Um, the form of government had just changed from a township committee form to a municipal manager form of government. And I came in with a lot of uh, excitement and getting the opportunity to kind of restructure the organization. The township has always had a really, really well-developed, committed staff. And to be able to come in and now be the chief executive officer of the town, uh, it was exciting for me. And it was a change because before that time, I was city manager in other towns in the state, and also then in Pennsylvania, and started my career in Oklahoma as a city manager. And coming to South Brunswick with it's much larger, 42 square miles, um, a lot of work to be done. It was a very, very fast-growing town. So we were dealing with growth issues. We were dealing with environmental issues with a major highway that the state wanted to put right through the middle of our town, which we were successful at stopping, by the way. And then, a staff that was really, really committed. It was truly wonderful experience to come in there and see such dedicated people. Um, embraced what I was trying to do. The governing body had quite an adjustment to make, changing the form of government, but they were excellent. We worked alongside each other very, very well. Um, and then in 2002, I was asked by the governor to come to the state and be the director of local government services. And it's an honor that I just couldn't refuse. The council, mayor and council were very supportive of that. They didn't want me to go, at least that's what they said. But they understood the position and what that meant. So that was a wonderful experience. And but then after a couple of years, there were some changes in South Brunswick, and after talking to the mayor at that time, Mayor Gambatese, and now Mayor Carley, and a host of others that were on the council, I came back, and that really was an exciting time for me. So coming back and being there until 2011. So when I moved on um, to North Jersey and to a larger town of Clifton. So retired in 2020 and 2021, and been going ever since. So I'm very happy to have. I'm very fond of South Brunswick and being able to work with such wonderful people there. Most of the people that I knew were gone, and now people that are in department head positions are people that I hired, which was really fun. So that was the experience, and that's how I ended up in South Brunswick, and my term there. It was hard to leave. I'll be honest, it was hard to leave, but I needed to for personal reasons, nothing to do with the government or the operation of the township. I had unfortunate tragedy of losing my wife to cancer, and I needed to change. So for me, that was the mental part. Otherwise, I would have retired from South Brunswick. I'm quite certain of that.
Sure.
So that hopefully that does it.
No, that's perfect. That answers a great amount of the things I was asking. I think to draw back on it, what led you to pursuing a career in local government
Um,
prior to all of the stops that you had?
Good question. So in 1974, 75, I started my college career and in Oklahoma, and I was going to be an accountant. And one day, the dean of the School of Political Science came in and said, "We're starting a new program teaching people how to be municipal managers." At the time, I had no idea what a city manager was. Um, And it was a perfect blend for me. It was a perfect blend of governing politics, which I happen to enjoy, as counterintuitive as that may be, and also the business side, the accounting side, the management of money, and the personnel side I knew nothing about at the time. So it was very attractive, and also it allowed me to move anywhere I wanted to. City management is the same anywhere except in New Jersey, which New Jersey has a very unique system for governance, especially at the local level. And the county, local level, I mean, includes the counties as well. And so when I came to New Jersey, just by circumstance, in 1986, I was very happy to do that and really enjoyed that. But I love the idea that you're in a position where you're really kind of running a small business, although I defy anybody to say that it's like running a business. It's not. Um, and I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the politics of it, not in the partisanship, but the public policy. I've been on the League of Municipalities Legislative Committee since 1986, and I'm still there today. So that part of governance and taking care of the taxpayers' money, being a public servant, which a lot of people have looked frowned upon, especially over the last 20 years, it is a privilege. It's an honor to be selected to have a fiduciary responsibility, a moral and ethical responsibility to protect the taxpayers, to provide clean water, a safe environment, a steady good recreation and things like that. All very much an honor. And I see that as an honor, and I try to express that honor in everything that I do, even to this day.
Great. No, that's awesome. It's I think as a young person knowing and getting more used to working with local government and as someone who grew up in South Brunswick and still lives there today, it's interesting to hear more about that process. I think that's something that a lot of people don't know about. So this will spread a lot of light onto that. Um, so you got to South Brunswick relatively close to the events that, we're kind of discussing in these talks. When it came down to South Brunswick being the position that you were appointed to, how did that happen, or why did that happen, or did you get to choose where you wanted to apply for?
Well, the the League of Municipalities is very good about having classified notices. That's where most every municipality that I know of advertises jobs that they have available. South Brunswick was no different. The person that was assisting them and recruiting the manager, um, I had known for many years. Well, not that many years because it really wasn't that. At least for 10 years, I had known the gentleman, and I was ready to make that change. I was in a smaller town, city in Burlington County. I was, looking to take on more responsibility. I think it's the same in business where, you start off small, you're a clerk or administrative aide, and you ultimately want to be the top guy. Well, I was the top guy, but in municipal government, smaller budget, smaller employees now going to a um, bigger town, bigger responsibilities. The fact that South Brunswick was growing the way it was growing, um, and had all those issues of growing made it very challenging and exciting. And being the, you know, so that's really what attracted me. And going through the interview process, ironically enough, I was offered a position in another community the day before the council appointed me in South Brunswick. I chose South Brunswick, even though I had basically two jobs in my hand. That was an enviable position, but I chose South Brunswick because I wanted to be there. I was so impressed and pleased with the governing body and how they responded to me and what they said they wanted to accomplish.
Great. That's great. I think that covers the good background on this question, how you got to where you worked for the majority of your career here. Um, Turning more towards the topic of our discussion in September 11th and the responsibilities of those in local government. Obviously, we've talked with some of our local law enforcement officers who were sent, and that responsibility of local law enforcement and municipal employee is different, and especially the experiences of those who went to New York City. Could you walk me through in your position what first, if there was a responsibility of the township manager to, is there a responsibility of a township manager to ensure or move on to the things that require, so apologies, the responsibility of the township manager to help like move the action of helping keep our township safe, helping in that process. Did that come about when you had started your career, and then we can transition into the day of?
So the township manager, position is you're the chief executive officer. The council, the mayor and council hire the manager, and the manager hires everybody else. And much like a corporation where, you have a board, and that being the council, and then you have your CEO and you have everybody else. So yes, a lot of responsibility rests with the with the city manager, the township manager in this case. The authorization for the gentleman, the police officers that went to town, all that came through me. I mean, that was done in conjunction with the chief. We had, there was obviously a flurry of conversations and everything that day. Um, for better or worse, I remember the day very, very well, as we all do. I remember every moment those first that first hour trying to figure out what's going on. Are we under attack? Are we, the tragedy of it all, the lack of information, which is normal, which is to be expected. What do we do? And then as the day rolled out, responding to those issues and for just the purpose that you said, making sure we're safe. Is our country under attack? Are we, planes were flying out, obviously everybody knows what happened. We didn't know at that time. The information was flying around as in any emergency. Exaggeration from, it's nothing, it was just a mishap. I remember because at the time, I was still flying small planes, taking the flight up the Hudson River at the height of the World Trade Center at that time was, big deal. It was cool. It was, how cool is that? You're flying right by building at your eye level, even though you're 1,000 feet off the ground. Um, so I remember thinking to myself, oh, plane guy just lost control of his plane and crashed in the building. It was when the second tower went that we realized okay, this is more than that, And so that day was, then it was, moving to protect the town. And, the South Brunswick, the way it's located, and obviously I'm not going to say anything with any kind of exactness, but there are large infrastructures that run through South Brunswick, as does through Middlesex County, Burlington County, all the counties have various underground assets that, focal points we wanted to protect. Um, so we moved to protect those. You have the Islamic Center there on Route 1, you know, when information later in the day came out that this was, potentially a Middle Eastern terrorist group, we wanted to protect the Islamic Center from anybody that's retaliating or any kind of crazy things that might go on. All those things are going on at the time. You just can't imagine how confusing it is and, all that kind of stuff.
Sure. No, and that totally makes sense, and that definitely rings true with some of the other parts of the story that I've heard. As far as the day goes, could you walk me through like where you were when you first heard the news, and then the administrative process of going through getting to work or wherever you were, and the kind of the timeline of the day?
So that morning, I had scheduled, and we were in the process of actually negotiating a labor contract. So we were holding our first meeting, um, somewhat informally, I believe, but the president of the union, who was also a member of the fire department, uh, he and I were together, and somebody, called it, knocked on the door, come in, turn on the TV right now. There's a plane flew into the World Trade Center. And I remember saying to the gentleman, the union president, like I said, was a firefighter and I said, boy, it must be a small plane. I said, how tough would that be to fight that fire that many floors up? May have taken out the elevator. We were talking about just the mechanics of fighting a fire at the whatever level that was. I don't know how many stories up, but where it hit, but it's obviously up there. And we were talking about that, and and um, and then talked to the chief of police. We were on alert. He was starting to get messages from the state of New Jersey. OEM was opened up. We opened up OEM locally um, because we just didn't know. And that first hour was just, confusing because we thought, okay, a plane flew into the tower. Yeah, that's tragic. We turned on the news, saw it happening, and saw that, and then we thought, well, come on, go back and sit down and start pick up where we left off. And just at that time, the second plane went into the other tower, and then everything changed. Now you move to having conversations about what's going on, what's the information, reaching out to the mayor and council at the time, telling them, it was obvious. You get concerned for your own family. I called my wife at the time and, kids and everything like that. You worry that what's going on? Are we under attack? Are we in a war all of a sudden? And then you hear about the Pentagon, and then we didn't know about Pennsylvania till later in the day. So all those things were going on. And of course, the rumors were just flying everywhere. What was this, Russians, all the groups that we consider to be enemies of the United States was this happening? Was that happening? Where are we deploying? Um, so there's the mix of protecting the town, trying to figure out what to do, listening to all the information that was going on, and your own concern for your own family, your own person, your other family. It was like the earlier, the Mara building in Oklahoma City was terroristic, blew up. Well, my mother worked not in that building, but next to that building. Um, you know, that panic that sets in of trying to find out what's going on, that lesson I learned from that happened in 1997, 95, I think. You have all those things going on in your head. Um, and then, of course, the governing body wanting to know what's going on, what information do we have as the day progressed along, um, you 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 start to get a little more information um, that that then you heard about the other planes going into buildings, and things started to kind of calm down, but you just never knew when something else was going to happen and where it would happen. And I remember distinctly at one point later that day, I just needed to get out of the office. And I got in my car, drove to a high point in town, and you could literally see the smoke trailing across the horizon from the World Trade Center. Also, you're trying to find out who from South Brunswick might have been killed obviously the buildings by that time had fallen. So you knew thousands of people had been killed. Were there any South Brunswick people there, that we need to know about? And sure enough, there were three. Um, and that was very, very difficult. And then, what do you say? The mayor at the time, we had a council meeting that night. You're trying to figure, okay, do we still have the meeting or don't we? what do we say to the public? And so later in the day, the mayor decided to cancel the meeting, notified the rest of council, and then, you know, I encouraged her and she did, let's make a statement to the public. So we recorded a statement that evening, just letting everybody know that there would be no council meeting. Um, you know, just the feelings of the day. The mayor did an excellent job of conveying the emotion that we all felt, and the fear that we had.
Sure. Within that responsibility, like you had mentioned before, you were the one to have to help authorize the officers to go to the city. What other local safety elements were included in that? I've heard some of the talks of guarding the municipal building with garbage trucks and things like that during the
Right.
day.
Because you don't really know what's happening. I mean, how can you? Like I said, there are certain key parts of the town that most people don't know about. The grid and all that stuff because of the way South Brunswick is, when you talk about Monmouth Junction, was a key junction of movement of goods through the state of New Jersey since the 1700s. Um, so lots of key aspects. We wanted to protect that. We wanted to protect, like I said, the Islamic Center, the houses of faith that we felt might be vulnerable to some kind of, retaliation or attack, because all of a sudden you have, this whole thing about the Muslims, and all that stuff, all that fear mongering that was going on still goes on today. Um, excuse me, just don't know. And so we were trying to decide how that should be done, because you have fire districts in South Brunswick, it's still coordination with fire departments, volunteer ambulance service. What can we send? How can we help New York? Um, it was the lack of information, and just as in any emergency, you're just trying to be very flexible about what you want to do. We wanted to help where we could. We moved to protect South Brunswick and our residents first, and then went to help New York. We were concerned with South Brunswick first, and that's want everybody to understand that that was our first concern. So we cordoned off some of the areas around the municipal building just because we didn't know. So that popular term, abundance of caution. We just wanted to make sure because even that evening, we weren't sure what was going to happen. What's going to happen? And you know, as the days progressed, it got a little more easy because you didn't have so many questions.
Sure. What was the process like putting together the authorization to help send the first responders, the police officers to the city?
Well, I'm very much one that relies on the department heads. And so, Chief Paquette at the time was, you know, extremely talented, very knowledgeable. South Brunswick has always been on a leading edge. I mean, the leadership, the training um, that Chief Paquette really fostered, and then followed with Chief Haduka, that whole training and that knowledge and connections and network, all that comes into play, Chief. So, like I said, South Brunswick's been blessed with some tremendous leaders, and the departments. And So the health officer, health director of health, and all those things, we, we all consulted with each other. Chief Paquette made his recommendations to me, it made sense. We talk about, what's the impact, how we handle that. Um, you know, South Brunswick first, then everybody else second. All that came pretty fast and furious at the time. And, I was very much, supportive of the chief. And I think that bared itself out, frankly.
Sure. I definitely agree there. And hearing their stories is obviously very inspiring. And the work that they did that day, and some of whom who went back multiple times afterwards,
Right.
it's great to know that the support systems were in place. So we kind of got through what happened that day, the responsibilities, the outcome of everything. After that went over, and maybe the next, from my understanding, it was we kind of kept up with these safety checks, patrols, all that stuff throughout
Yep.
the township for like 6 months to a year or so. Um, were there any other things that followed? Obviously, an event of this scale was something that no one could have predicted or prepared for in the beforehand. Following that, was there any type of push or movement within the municipality to prepare for not as big of a scale of a threat to the community, but any training, any exercises, anything like that that maybe crossed your desk or that you were part of to help make sure the township is running and is safe?
I think that, like I said, South Brunswick has always been a town that was, I don't know if I'll brag. I always felt that we were on the forefront of training for our staff and particularly our police and fire company. I know did very much the same, followed suit with that. Um, our DPW training and things that biohazards, our health department was very much on top of so many things of training, all the pandemics, before we had the big one in 2020, we were preparing, pandemic scenarios. The state of New Jersey has been very good about that. We're criticized a lot as government for spending a lot of money, but I will tell you, having worked in three different states, South Brunswick or New Jersey is particularly concerned with training and making sure that police officers and firefighters and public works people and, run utilities have that training, confined space, and all those things, all very, very important. And we invested in that, and that paid off. So to say, well, what did we do specifically? It is 25 years. I'm 70 years old. I get, it's a little foggy up here, but you know, what we relied on is the training that was provided and making sure our officers had what they needed. Governing body's always been there for that. And I think that continues even to this day. And I think that's where we showed that, it that the training helped out. We were very much aware. We even the thing that was so impressive about South Brunswick at the time, and I'm sure it is today, is we had an interfaith council. When some tragedy happened, even within just one family, we had this network of the various religions across the board, across the township. The township was extremely diverse, even back in 1999. Always been diverse, and now it's so much bigger, and more so. Um, we called the Interfaith Council together. We had I think it was a couple days later, we had a time for everybody to talk and to express their emotions. It was all the leaders from the various faiths there, the mayor, myself, the chief, all of us there to, to talk to the public, to give them a voice, to make sure that they, could express their concerns, talk about what their fears are. This was also established in South Brunswick before anything like this ever happened, and I think that that's unique. I've worked in 7, 8 different communities. I've in New Jersey. I've consulted with many, many municipalities. This was unique, certainly at the time, for a town, mid-sized town to have available and already set in place.
Sure. Great. I think that really covers a lot of what I think I wanted to talk about today. For my last question, is there anything else that you feel about that is valuable that you'd like to share about your experience in your position or about the day or anything that followed?
I think what I would want to say to, the people of South Brunswick that may watch this, South Brunswick has always been a very, I want to say progressive, not in the political terms, but in the sense of being prepared, training, investing in appropriate equipment and having things so that we as the ones that operate it day to day could function. And, I think you've been blessed with um, extremely good political leaders in the town, um, and that stability, that responsibility that they take seriously and have even before I was there, but certainly the last 25 years, last 30 years, that has been a key thing. And that is unique, I will tell you. The 560 towns that are out there in New Jersey, the governing body, you don't see the there not that there weren't times where there were challenges and disputes. You don't see that in South Brunswick. It's extremely rare, and everybody in South Brunswick should be very proud of that because ultimately it saves a lot of money and a lot of taxpayers' money. We were prepared. We responded. Community responded well. You have the fountain that's out there that, was done by donation only. It was a wonderful contest and things like that for design contest. It was great. I think it keeps the memory of the three residents that we lost at that time. That's what the three granite benches are for. And we wanted to keep that in mind. And I think the fact that the council, the governing body, responded immediately to that idea of having some kind of memorial and it being unique. It's the only fountain that I know of that's dedicated to 9/11, other than at the World Trade Site itself. Um, you know, I think that speaks a lot about what South Brunswick residents should be proud of, that for many years, for decades, this has been a well-run town and one that's ahead of a lot of other communities.
Great. I think that's everything on my end. I will stop the recording now.